Hi guys, how are you today? My name is Misty and I'm from the Homer City Community Garden and Learning Center. And today we are in my kitchen and we're going to learn how to make a really simple tomato sauce that can be water bath canned and put on the shelf for long-term storage. This is a great way to put up some of your massive amounts of tomatoes. I use all different types of tomatoes, not just sauce tomatoes when I make mine. Sometimes it means boiling a little bit longer to reduce it, and because there's not enough as much meat as the paste tomatoes and stuff like that. But I love using all of the different tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, salad tomatoes, all the different colors, and just to make a nice hearty tomato sauce that is really plain, that can be jazzed up in whatever recipe you choose. So join me in my kitchen today and hopefully you can learn something that you find to be useful. We're working on trying to be sustainable and just learn a few skills of the yesteryears, so enjoy.
The first thing we're going to want to do is prep our tomatoes, whether that means getting them out of the freezer or starting from fresh. If you're going to use fresh, you're going to want to blanch them, and that's a process we're not going to go over today because I prefer to do it a different way. It just seems like a lot of work to do the blanching. So I prefer to gather my tomatoes as they ripen. I core the top. I put a slice an X in the bottom of the fruit, and then I just stick them in Ziploc bags until I have enough to make my sauce. So the night before I decide to make sauce, I'll pull them out and I'll let them defrost. While they're defrosting, we can do all kinds of things, and one of the main things we want to do is we want to make sure everything that we're going to use for this process is clean. So that's what I'm doing here. You want to wash everything really well, and then also when it comes to the jars, once you get your canner water in there and it starts to boil, you're going to want to dunk your jars in there for a little bit just to sanitize them. And then I like to put them into a hot oven at about 200 degrees and let it wait while everything's ready. But you're not going to really do that until your sauce is almost ready to go. Right here, I'm washing what's called a chinois, and it's a really handy strainer. I highly recommend having one of these. There's so many applications. So as you can see, there's a ton of water that is coming off of the defrosted tomatoes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that to the sink. Now you can either do this slowly by just putting a few holes in your bag and then letting it drain into the sink, or you can save that juice by getting a container. Well, why would you save this juice? Well, it actually has a lot of nutrients in it, and it's great to water plants with. I wouldn't water anything indoors, but you could take it out to your flower beds and add that, and it would just add a little bit more nutrition. You can throw it in the compost bin as well, but I highly recommend you using this as a natural fertilizer for your plants. So once you squeeze all of that extra water and whatnot out, you're going to take all of your bags and transfer them into a stock pot. And you're going to do that for each one of those bags. So once you get all of your tomatoes ready in the stock pot, you're going to turn it on to medium to high heat for about 10 to 20 minutes and just bring that to a nice boil, and that will start to break down all this material. While you're waiting on that, you can prep all of your food mill tools. This is an overview here. You see the auger and essentially a sieve and all of the feeding stuff, and once you get it put together, this is what it looks like. It can be a little bit daunting to figure out. This is attached to my KitchenAid. If you don't have this, that's okay. We're going to show you how to do it by hand. This adjusts what comes out at the end, which is the discard, and you basically can change your attachments through this gadget right there. And so I'm just kind of showing you how it gets put together. All right, and then this will push things through if they get stuck. Right now, once you let that all boil, you're going to take your potato masher and you're going to try to break this up just a little bit so you don't have really big chunks. Once you have that smashed down a little bit, you can start ladling this into your food processor. You put the whole pot through there, and what's happening here is the auger is separating the meat and the juices from the seeds and the skins. So you're seeing that come out the end into the metal pot, and the parts that we're going to save for the sauce are going into the glass dish. You're going to do this for the entire pot. I am going to reserve a little bit at the end so I can show you how to use the hand sieve, but you will do this with your whole pot. And eventually you'll go back in and run all of that through again, and I will show that later. So here I'm going to demonstrate how to use a chinois or a strainer. This whole setup with the stand, the strainer, and the little wooden mill handle, all of that was about $20 when I bought that a couple years ago, just for reference. So it's very affordable, and it requires no energy, no electric or anything, so that's also very handy. But basically you just dump everything in there and you kind of let it get it going through, and then you just turn it, and that will help push some of the things through. And then once you're done, you have a very roughly milled material. This takes a lot of time, so I highly recommend using your big muscles for this one. But if you are going to do large amounts of sauce, I would invest in a mill. Okay, so here what we're doing is we're going to run all of the discarded, undesirable things that came out the end the first time. We're going to run that back through the mill, because why not? Because it's doing the work for us, so we might as well give it another run through, because you do actually get a little bit more of the meat and other bits that you would like to have if you do this. So I highly recommend you do. You just let that go through, and I like to tighten that screw down just a little bit, and that will help keep some of the pieces separating a little more efficiently. But like I said, every model of this is going to be a little bit different, so you're going to have to follow your handbook that comes with it or look it up on the internet. This is a really efficient way to do this. So let's talk about what we can do with this discard at the end. One of the greatest things you can do is throw it into your compost bin, but be sure to bury it really well under some other compostable items, because you will end up with volunteer tomatoes in your compost bin. I always find that to be fun every year, to guess which kind of tomato it is. It's always nice to have free plants. So I'm just running it one more time through that sieve right into the pot that we're going to start cooking it in. Just kind of wiping off the sides, getting all that nice meaty pulp off the edges. And then I'm going to transfer everything from the glass dish into my big stock pot. I'm going to put it on the stove. So here we're going to take note of the level of the sauce inside our stock pot. We're going to take our stock pot, we're going to place it on our stove on a medium to high heat. We're going to boil that for several hours. That took me about 2 hours to get mine where I wanted it. If you want a thin sauce, you're going to reduce it by 1/3. And if you want a thicker sauce, reduce it by at least 1/2. And you want to make sure that you stir it frequently so that you don't burn any of your sauce on the bottom of the pot, which will kind of make it have an off-putting taste, and you don't want to do that. So next we want to talk about what we need for this. We want to have sea salt, citric acid. Those are going to go in our jars, and the vinegar is going to be for wiping our lids. So we want to have all that ready to go with a teaspoon measurement and a 1/2 teaspoon. Here we have all the things we need for canning. We have our lids and our rings that correspond to the size of our jars. We have a funnel. We have a jar lifter, imperative that we have that. The lid magnet, helpful but not necessary. And the headspace tool will help us measure our headspace, which we'll talk about here in a second. Okay, these are all available at most big box stores and available online. So today I'm going to be using my Blue Book by Ball. And I highly recommend this book, especially if you're a beginner. It has really clear instructions. You can find a lot of these recipes online as well, but this I bought, again, at a big box store. It was pretty easily available. It has a lot of colorful things and a lot of really clear instructions and several helpful hints. Right here, they break down all of your water bathing of tomatoes, and they do a fabulous job of it. So as you can see, mine is well loved and well marked in. But if you're interested in getting this, I'm not sponsored by this in any way, but this is what I find to be the most helpful. So you want to keep your jars warm. I like to turn my oven on to the lowest setting, which is 200, and put my clean jars in there just to keep them warm. And I take them one at a time, and I'm going to add my citric acid and my sea salt in the proper amounts. For a pint jar, you want 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid, and here for our quart jars, we will be using a 1/2 teaspoon of citric acid, or 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice. When adding salt, we're going to use 1/2 teaspoon for a pint and 1 teaspoon for a quart. Once you reach your desired thickness, then you're going to be ready to transfer to your jars. You're going to use a ladle and your funnel, and you're going to transfer your sauce into your hot jar that also already has your salt and your citric acid. You're going to fill it to about the rim, but you want to leave, in this case, a 1/2 inch headspace. And how we determine that is we use our headspace tool that I'm showing you here, and there are different steps on it, the edge of it, and it'll show you how deep your mixture, whatever it is, in this case it's tomato sauce, how far it should be. So you look at the 1/2 inch mark, and then you make sure that the liquid or the tomato sauce only comes up to the edge of that tool. When you rest that step on the rim, then you're going to clean the rim with a vinegar paper towel, and then place your lid and the ring finger tight only, and then move it into your water bath canner with the rack up. You're going to continue to fill all of your jars with your salt, your citric acid, and then ladle through the funnel all of the sauce, leaving your appropriate headspace each time, and then cleaning the rim with the vinegar paper towel every time, finger tightening your lid and your ring each time, and then place all of the jars, however many that ends up being, into your water bath canner. As you can see here, I had just a little bit left over, but that's okay. We'll taste test that later. So once everything's ready to go, we're going to lower our rack down into the water. And at this point, we want to make sure we have about an inch of water above the top of all of our jars. We're going to check to make sure we have about an inch of water over there like that. And then we're going to cover it and bring it to a boil. Then we're going to taste test to make sure that there's no poison. Not too bad. All right. It's plain, and it's tomatoey, but it is good. So we're going to let that go for a processing time of 40 minutes once it starts to boil. Then we're going to put the lid back on, and we're going to set the timer for 40 minutes for quarts at a medium temperature, medium heat. And I think it's 35 minutes for pints. But your ball jar bulk should tell you. Now once that's over, we're going to turn off the heat and remove the cover, and we're going to wait 5 minutes. So set another timer. After your 5 minutes are over, you're going to remove them from the heat. Listen carefully. Those two little pings that you just heard were the seals popping on the lids, and that means we did our job right. Look how cute. Now, once they're dry and they're cool, we're going to remove the rings for storage. Don't forget, this is how you'll leave them set up for the night to allow them to cool. And once they're ready to go, like I said, remove the rings, and you want to make sure you label them with what they are and the date. Enjoy your tomato sauce, and this can be used in any recipe.
Okay, so out of about 4-gallon Ziploc bags, we were able to make 2 quarts of sauce. Now, I usually get about a quart per gallon Ziploc bag, but these Ziploc bags weren't full. They were not completely full. So, you just never really know. It's always good to have extra jars prepped in advance, like sterilized and ready to go, which I prepped 5 jars, and I didn't need nearly as many. But it's always better to be, a little err on the side of caution and have a little extra. This is a great activity to do, like I said, with all of your extra tomatoes. I like to use all the different tomatoes. I don't really think that it matters all that much. Something I'd like to do for the community garden this year is if we have a surplus of tomatoes, I'd like to do a few sauce jars. And it's a nice activity. Everybody says either start with jellies or tomatoes because they're the easiest things. So hopefully you've learned something about water bath canning today, and you're able to feel confident that it's time for you to try something like this. I have all this equipment, but it's very easy to do a lot of this without all this extra stuff. The only thing that I would really suggest that you really need is this grippy thing, because this is a deal breaker when it comes to lifting jars. So this is really, I think, the only tool that I would say is absolute necessary, and also a good funnel. They make funnels that fit into the jars of, or to the lids of jars. So I think that works better than the skinny tube funnels. So I recommend getting that as well. But you definitely need the lifter. So hopefully you've learned something and you are interested in taking a new journey into the world of canning. I tried to do this as much by the book as possible. There's a few little things that I kind of deviate from. Personally, I'm more of a fan of blending stuff up in the blender and then running it through a sieve, But I also have the food mills now, so I don't really do that quite as much. But before I had a food mill, that's what I would do. So I would blend it in my big blender and then run it through a chinois or a sieve or anything of that nature. So try it different ways. Start and use what you have, and then if you get really interested into it, then buy the equipment. The equipment definitely makes life go a lot faster. So I hope you enjoyed yourself. Have a great day. See you next time.